This Reddit story comes from the subreddit r/entitled people, where OP's wife remorselessly cheated on him and also got pregnant by her affair partner. Not sure if this is the right sub, but I can't think of anywhere else to post this. For those who remember me, I'm the guy whose wife made our kids release a wild bunny in the middle of the yard after I advised her to have the kids take it to the bushes to release it safely. A hawk took the bunny right in front of both of our children, 4 and 5 years old at the time, and they freaked out on their mother, then came running back to me in tears. Our kids started calling their mother the Bunny K***ler. That name seems apt now, and other people called her that as well after her affair got out. What happened with that poor bunny is ancient history compared to what I have to tell now. I'm speaking as a free man after finishing divorce a couple of months ago. This is going to be pretty long and complicated, so buckle up. And yes, I'll include a TLDR. Edit. AP stands for affair partner. Apologies for not making that clear sooner. I did show my wife my original Reddit post, and she was very angry with me, so much so it caused a bad fight. And after it, I got the silent treatment for another week. I tried to make my kids stop mistreating their mother after the bunny incident, even with being punished by small groundings and timeouts. But the BK nickname kept coming back every time our kids got angry with their mother. My wife let up on her cold shoulder routine after a couple of weeks and conceded she should have listened to me about the bunny and should have taken it to the bushes like I said. She claimed that she just felt like she needed to defend herself because she didn't want to be wrong. I accepted that apology and apologized myself for making the Reddit post. I wanted us to go to marriage counseling, but she refused. She acted like there was nothing wrong with our marriage, and I decided not to push the issue further since things were seemingly getting along better. But after a few weeks, my eldest came to me saying she wanted to tell me something. There was another reason why she was so mad at her mother than just the bunny, but she was scared to tell me. I comforted her and told her she could tell me anything. Well, what she said shocked me and changed everything in an instant. She said that for months Mama had been bringing a man over some Saturdays I was at work, and had referred to him as her special friend. She got our kids to keep quiet about it by various means of bribery. But my eldest realized that something was very wrong with it, and spent some time working up the courage to tell me. Kids know things and pick up on stuff very quickly. I really dislike it when people dismiss those facts. I had noticed my wife acting a bit differently lately. She had been more short with everyone, especially the kids. I tried talking to her about it when I showed her my first post, and she just went off on me about any little thing she could think of. Insulted my appearance, my character, my habits, even my side of the family. She even brought up that I used to smoke. I quit over 10 years ago. Then she resorted to locking me out of our bedroom and crying so loud you could hear it all over the house. So when my eldest came to me, I ended up putting 2 and 2 together. She was cheating, and her behavior was very similar to the mood swings she had while pregnant with both of our children. Similar, I say, because it was even worse. From what I've gathered searching online and what friends and even a counselor have told me, my wife was both very moody from hormones and projecting because of her infidelity. I can't claim to be an expert in psychology, but it does seem to make sense. I wanted it to all be a misunderstanding, but I quickly ordered and set up a few hidden cameras without anyone knowing. I had them delivered to my work just so no one at home would see them. Then I set them up on a day my wife went out to have a girls' night with her friends. It was very easy to hook them up and connect them to the Wi-Fi. In just a few short hours, I could monitor every part of the house from my home PC, laptop, and work PC. At first I worried I might have been going overboard. I thought if it turned out I was wrong, then I could remove the cameras and no one would ever know. But no, my worst fears were confirmed as I got plenty of evidence in just the first week. The man my wife has taken as an AP is a former colleague of hers. I remembered him quite well as they seemed close with my wife whenever I met him at various functions. My wife quit her job years ago to be a full-time mom after getting pregnant with our first. It was a mutual decision for us both at the time. My wife stayed connected with her former coworkers as they were her best friends. But not anymore. What I'm about to tell you has pretty much made her hated by everyone. Firstly, the AP is younger than my wife by about a decade. She mentored him at her former job to fill her position when she left. And the two of them stayed close. Very close. My wife and I are both over 40, but you wouldn't know it from looking at her. She's positively stunning. She got mistaken for someone in their 20s quite a lot, and I guess she capitalized on that. I ended up confiding to my sister about what was going on, and showed her the footage from the nanny cams. She told me she'd suspected for a while, and said she'd seen my wife once at a local bar getting a bit too close with a man that wasn't me. But they never kissed or anything while she was watching. Just lots of touching on the shoulders and lower back. And since she wasn't sure, she didn't tell me sooner. I ended up ordering a GPS tracker as well. And after I got it working, I hid it in the trunk of my wife's car. My sister and her husband agreed to help me and followed the tracker on my wife's next supposed night out with friends. She went to a completely different place 20 miles further away than where she usually goes. And from there she met up with AP. My sister and Bill observed them for some time from their car, and noticed AP kept rubbing her belly while they were talking. And they recorded video of this too. When I saw the footage I knew she had to be pregnant with his baby since she was so moody at home. My sister and Bill had to calm me down because I turned into a complete mess. I wanted to self-medicate with alcohol, but my sister very correctly told me that drinking the worst thing I could do at the moment. Later I decided to take a leave from work, but told my wife I was actually going to be on a business trip. She couldn't have been more excited about it, and didn't try very hard to hide her glee that I'd be leaving for a while. Who is this woman? She's certainly not the one I married almost 20 years ago, right? Did someone who looks exactly like her just take her place one day? Is she an alien from the pod people? Did I ever really know her? The more I thought about it, the less it made sense to me. So my end conclusion was that trying to make sense of anything wouldn't do me any good. I had cameras all over the house, and my sister and Bill agreed to take my kids for a few days because they love visiting auntie and uncle in the city. This gave my wife the exact opening she wanted. She called AP only a few hours after I left, and he showed up that evening to spend the night. I won't go into any detail about what they did around the house. You can fill in those details yourselves. But on top of all that, they were joking about me continuously. They openly talked about their baby, and how they needed to figure out what to do before her belly starts to show, as she was already over 3 months along by then, and there was no way it could be passed off as mine. AP is a different race from me, so it'd be pretty easy to tell the baby wouldn't be mine from birth. My wife brushed AP's concerns aside and said that they had months to figure it out. Then she shamelessly admitted this wasn't even her first affair, as she'd slept with another man when she was 29. She told AP she was sick of having to act like the good housewife, and was tired of being around a boring man like myself that made her feel old. And if it wasn't for me being so financially stable, she'd have left me long ago. Even her AP asked her about what her plan is with our kids. Her exact words were, "He can have them." She didn't even want to be around our kids anymore because she thought they liked me better. And she'd soon be having her do-over baby anyway. I very nearly threw the laptop on the floor in my motel room because I was so disgusted. But I contained myself, drank a few beers from a 6-pack, got some dinner at a diner, then watched a movie. After that, I spent half the night just laying in bed and thinking till I finally fell asleep. I thought I knew my wife so well. I loved her and would have given her all I had to give. But in the end, some people are just evil, and you can never really know who they are till they reveal their true self. I made up my mind right then to destroy her in a divorce. I'm normally a very kind and calm man, but get me angry enough, and I can become your worst nightmare. I went to see a law firm for divorce lawyers the very next day, and asked for the meanest lawyer they had. I live in an at-fault state, so my wife was screwed the moment I had her affair on camera. The lawyer was initially apprehensive that I wanted to hire him so quickly, until I explained my situation in more detail. And I even showed him some of the video footage. That's when he got a devilish grin and we shook hands. He said he'd start right away because this was the kind of case divorce lawyers love to dig their teeth into. I had my wife served a few weeks later on a day I was working from home, and the kids were in school. The eldest in kindergarten, and the youngest in preschool. The papers were delivered right to my wife's hands by the local sheriff. The cameras caught it all. She looked scared while she opened the envelope, read the contents, and then lost her mind. She came running into my office to scream at me, but I remained cool and calm the whole time. I was already completely mentally checked out of our marriage. My wife wanted to argue. I just told her I'd made up my mind, and I wanted her out of my house. I'm the only one who's ever paid into the mortgage. She screamed at me that I can't do this to her, and then actually threatened to tell people I beat her if I take her to court and get me fired from my job to boot. I told her to go right ahead and make up any lie she wants. It won't help her. It's not like she wasn't planning on screwing me over since she's pregnant with her AP's baby anyway. She went wide-eyed and asked me how much I knew. I just said I knew enough and told her once again that I wanted her to leave. She refused and said it was as much her house as it was mine. Then locked herself in the bedroom again. I saw on the bedroom cameras her having a meltdown and then pulling out her phone and calling police. She was acting like she was in complete panic, but there was a huge smile on her face while she was doing it. She was quite the actress. I'd have believed that performance over the phone in a heartbeat if I didn't already know she was a liar. I waited for police with the front door wide open and told them to come right in when they arrived. They were initially hot-blooded and ready for a showdown. But the house was clean and there were no signs of any sort of fight. My wife came running out of the bedroom and grabbed the vest of one of the officers while crying and saying I was a maniac. I asked one of the other officers to let me show them evidence of what was really going on, and he agreed, which really startled my wife as she was not aware that I'd recorded her. I showed the officer the footage from the cameras on a laptop of my wife saying she'd make stuff up to ruin my life. And then the footage from the living room after she ran out of my office and into the master bedroom down the hall. And then the footage from the camera in the bedroom of her calling the police and lying. I'd recorded it all, and from multiple angles no less. And even though she claimed to the police I'd hit her, there was not only no marks on her, but the cameras all around the house showed a completely different story. Then I handed the police a thumb drive and said it had all the video footage they needed of her calling them under false pretenses. My wife, even in the face of all this, stuck to her lie of saying I was an abuser, and even tried to say the recordings were illegal and therefore inadmissible. But I pointed out they are legal because they were security cameras inside of my own home and not recorded in public. My wife looked to the police and told them to do something, to which they did. She was the one put in handcuffs, and she started bawling like a child. I could only sit there shaking my head. This was once the woman I'd loved for so many years. I thought she was a wonderful, intelligent, and endearing person. Couldn't have been more wrong. As the police took her away, she screamed that they couldn't do this to her, but didn't fight back much. Otherwise, resisting arrest would have been added to her charges. I then shut down all her credit cards that were in my name and stopped any future payments into the joint bank account. So she had to use entirely her own money to bail herself out of jail. She'd saved plenty all those years she was still working while the mortgage was only on me, so she was anything but broke. She came back for her car, which I'd taken the liberty of packing a few of her suitcases full of her clothes and some other things, and left the key on the seat. So she wasn't even able to come back into the house. My wife's parents did come to speak to me a day after she bailed herself out of jail. Initially, they only had the backward story she told them, which was basically the same thing she tried to tell police. Her father especially was ready to attack me. Old as he is, he's big and strong. But when I asked him if he knew anything about my wife's affair, or her pregnancy, he looked very surprised and gave me the chance to explain myself. I pulled out the laptop again to show my in-laws what I'd recorded. When they found out the truth, they were disgusted and said that they couldn't believe this person was their daughter. They apologized to me and said they'd keep in touch to help out with my kids. Then they called my wife on speaker right in front of me and confronted her about her lies. She tried to double down, till they said they were with my right then and saw the recordings. They knew everything and wanted her out of their house immediately. She tried to backpedal, but my in-laws said they did not raise her to be a selfish adulterous bitch that would try to frame her own husband. And she was no longer their daughter. They disowned her over the phone right then and there, and then hung up before my wife could say anything else. She tried to call back, but they ignored her every attempt. And when they got home, not only was she gone, but she destroyed several things around their house, which my mother-in-law was in tears about. I still consider my ex's parents my in-laws, because they still drop by from time to see their grandchildren. But my ex is effectively dead to us all. My wife later came back with her AP in tow to pack her things. AP wouldn't even come in the house, and my wife refused to speak a word to me while gathering her remaining things. She knew there were cameras everywhere, and she'd damn herself more if she tried anything else. I wasn't alone either, as my sister and Bil were there to help keep an eye on her. Bil made sure to keep his eye on AP from the window. My wife was still packing when the kids got home, and she made no attempt to speak to either of them, not even when our youngest cried for her. Before leaving, she did take a few of the photos we had of each other from our wedding off the wall and threw them on the floor to break them. I think she was expecting a reaction out of me because of the way she looked at me while doing it. But since I didn't say anything, she just took the last of her bags and walked out the door. After she was gone, I had to call my elderly mother to come stay with me for a while because I couldn't take care of my kids alone. I couldn't take a lot of time off work, and I didn't have a lot of daycare options either. I also ordered DNA tests for my kids. I was sure they were mine, but several people told me that just in case I had to know. Thankfully, yes, both of my children are mine. And yes, I did get tested for STIs. And I'm clean, so no worries there. About a week later, my wife showed back up at my door saying that she would agree to a clean divorce if I did as well, meaning she'd have gotten half of everything if I had agreed. But I said no to her face. There was some fighting back and forth, and she more or less admitted to finding out the law in this state was not on her side. We met, got engaged, got married, and lived our whole lives in this state. There was no way she could get out of taking a major loss unless I agreed to settle, which I did not. Then I said that she betrayed me, our kids, her parents, and practically everyone by having an affair. Then I slammed the door in her face. She left quietly, and I didn't see her again till court. A few months later in divorce court, my wife was visibly quite pregnant by then, and she'd gotten a lawyer. AP was also nowhere to be seen. I expected her to lie to the judge, which she started to a few times. But I had enough video evidence to refute any lies, so she really didn't stand a chance. So instead, she tried to drag out the divorce by simply refusing to cooperate and making various demands. She wanted most of my savings for starters, and she wanted a long list of other things I own. And she wanted me to buy out of her half of the house, even though she never paid into it. On my end, I was pushing for full custody of the kids, and to get her name off the house deed. I had the video evidence to back up how she said she didn't really care for our children anymore too, and how she said she would make up lies. My wife tried to stall and repeatedly change her demands, but the judge didn't let her keep dragging things out. This being an at-fault state meant that she was entitled to very little since she was the adulterer, and her attempting to frame me only made her case even worse. In the end, she lost all custody of our kids, and walked away with nothing more than her belongings, what could be considered a fair financial settlement considering the circumstances, and the car I'd previously bought for her. The title was in my name, but I signed it over without a care as part of the settlement. She'd made no attempts to even speak to our kids during the entire divorce anyway. So I got full custody. The house is entirely mine now, and I'm completely free of her. My now ex-wife did try to keep up with her lies about me to others before and during the divorce. But my sister spread word around of my wife's infidelity, and soon all mutual friends cut her off when they realized who was telling the truth. She and her AP left town together after the divorce ended. I heard AP wasn't fired, but he was transferred. Where? I don't know. But I do know my ex had to go with him. They could have transferred him and my ex to freeze in Greenland for all I care. I'm just happy they've both left. My ex should have had her do-over baby by now, and I hope it was worth it to her. This is not what I thought I'd be posting to Reddit after just talking about my wife releasing a bunny where a hawk could get it. But many of the comments I previously got about how my wife was acting made me realize I should have been paying attention to the red flags long ago. I guess I just kept rose-tinted glasses on for our entire marriage. But it's all over now. Thank you to any readers who made it through this. I know it was a lot to read, but this is my life. TLDR, my wife unapologetically cheated on me. Admitted to hating our children and even a prior affair while being secretly recorded. Was only with me for the financial stability. Her AP is a decade younger than her, and she got pregnant by him. I caught them with hidden cameras and filed for divorce. My ex lost everything, including her family, as they all disowned her. I am now a free man after the divorce, and doing well. Edit. I got my ex's name off the house deed because all bank records that could be dug up showed only I ever paid into it. My ex was also repeatedly argumentative with the judge. And in an at-fault state, being a confirmed cheater puts you in world of trouble during a divorce. It's comparable to having a signed prenup against you. And when I said I got the meanest lawyer at the firm I went to, I meant it. The man was like a bear and a shark. The payout my wife got was 60 grand, and she also got the car I bought new for her a couple of years ago that cost me 50 grand. The car was paid off and I transferred the title to her. My ex was also still offered partial custody of our children. But since the video of her saying she didn't care about them anymore had been seen, she didn't bother to have any custody and willingly relinquished all rights to our kids when she realized she couldn't get her way. And for those who might think police wouldn't have arrested my ex for lying, think again. The police here don't mess around. And my ex, with a sociopathic grin on her face, tried to frame me as a wife beater. That's plenty grounds for arrest. Relevant comment by Reddit users. I guess it would be good of you to keep your ex's parents in your life, for the sake of your kids to have their grandparents, also since they took your side immediately. This ordeal must have been excruciating for them too. Incredible story. I can't imagine the level of heartache you've suffered. And for the children too. Best wishes for all your futures. Comment. Totally agree with this. Your kids will benefit from your in-laws being in their life. They're probably struggling a lot right now too, so try to keep them close if you're able. While divorce is never a thing to celebrate, as no one wants their marriage to end like this, I am so glad for you, OP. Your ex sounds like an evil witch who is finally getting everything that she deserves. Good riddance. Just focus on being a good dad to your kids now. They're pretty young, but your eldest is a smart one. They need their father right now more than ever to get through this tough time. Comment. I know this is 8 months later, but depending on where OP lives, he may not have had much choice in the matter once all was said and done legally. If he was granted sole custody and his ex, their daughter, vanished, and they'd had an established relationship with OP's kids, they could have easily sued for and won grandparents' rights, which would essentially just mean guaranteed visitation for them to see their grandkids. But again, that boils down to where OP is, as not a lot of places have grandparents' rights.